Hello and welcome back to a particularly lean and Spartan edition of the Guardian Film Show. Belts have been tightened, resources consolidated, and the regular guest list has been slashed by as much as 50%. We have 4 films to get through, and then the bailiffs break in.
Don't get emotional about real estate.
That's my family home.
Coming up on this week's show, Andrew Garfield and Michael Shannon pick over the carcass of the subprime boom in the repo drama 99 Homes.
Ci vorrebbe qualcuno un po' più scemo per sollevare un po' il morale.
Italian director Nanni Moretti stages a deathbed vigil in his Cannes contender Madre, and teenage dreams turn to nightmare in the course of the coming-of-age comedy Just Jim. But we begin by rewinding the clock to the mid-1950s when a gauche young actor by the name of James Dean was still finding his feet and perfecting his image. This is life as viewed through the lens of the filmmaker Anton Corbijn.
There's this kid. I think he might be starting something special, and I want to get an early photo essay on an unknown actor.
He won't be unknown for long.
Tell me what his name is. His name's James Dean.
Robert Pattinson is Dennis Stock, the straight-edged young magnum photographer chasing an elusive quarry across snowy New York. And Dane DeHaan is Dean, the symbol of a new movement and a thorn in the side of the Hollywood establishment. The man's a moving target, but he still needs to be shot. As I said earlier, just the one guest on this week's show, but it is a man who contains multitudes. It's the one-man critical army that is Peter
me.
Bradshaw.
Thank you, from all of us, thank you.
Talking of one iconic figure and then going to another,
Yes.
It's a Poison Chalice playing, one of the most visible photographed men on the planet, and yet I thought Dane DeHaan did a pretty good job here.
I think he did a very good job. My problem with the movie isn't with the job that Dane DeHaan did, because he did an eerie impersonation of James Dean. He really did convince me after a while that I was in fact watching James Dean. And I think another point that needs to be made is, even though we are very, very blasé these days about CGI recreations of period cityscapes, the recreation of Times Square in 1955 when their photographs were taken was just amazing. I mean, it really was eerie. It was very, very good indeed. But
Times Square was good.
Times Square was good,
Dane
and
DeHaan
Dane DeHaan was
good.
good. But I have to say, and I've got no problem with Mr. Pattinson generally.
I thought he was good.
Well, I've got to disagree. I thought there was something very wrong in the casting and the conception. I think it was a boring role, and he was frankly boring in it. I mean, okay, he's supposed to be the non-charismatic one. I get it. He's the photographer. James Dean is the star. He's being captured by the lens, and Robert Pattinson is behind the lens. But I thought, Pattinson, he's a very magnetic figure. He was straining at the leash in this role, and the role just gave him nothing.
I don't want to play this stupid game. You don't have to. I mean, just let me help you. I got 30 million people reading Life magazine, and we do a great shoot, and then none of this stuff.
Wait a minute, you think you're giving me something that's not already coming my way?
It was as inert as a photo spread. It just somnolently trudged through all these scenes, and it just never comes to, dare I say, life. I was so disappointed because I think Anton Corbijn is a great guy, a brilliant director. He has a claim to know more about still photography than any working movie director.
I mean, in a way, you could say it's a very personal film for him, because like the character of Dennis Stock, Corbijn went over to Manchester very young, chasing Joy Division, and that was his kind of coming of age.
But that, for me, the movie he made about Ian Curtis and Joy Division in 2007, that dramatically came to life in a way that this simply, I don't know, it doesn't. It's too respectful.
It's very restrained.
It's hushed. It's as if you've walked into a kind of cathedral of pop culture importance, and you've got to keep your voice down. I'm really, really frustrated about this movie because I really want to enjoy it, and I have nothing but admiration for Corbijn, who I think is a fascinating guy. But there's something that just doesn't come to life without this.
I quite liked it. I quite like the sort of the minor key, restrained sort of smokiness of it. That kind of worked for me.
I don't want to play this stupid game.
I just want to do good acting. Whatever's gonna happen to you doesn't just happen by accident.
There's a lot on paper that's great about it. Dane DeHaan is, as I say, he really is eerily good. Eerily good. And the period work and the location work and the period furnishings, all superb. All superb. But as I say, we're turning the pages over in an old magazine and seeing, oh yeah, it's New York, and here he is on the farm, and
It's
it's
the
just,
Duke joint.
yeah, it's exactly him in the sort of cool hep cat joint, and that's him dozing off, and he seems to be kind of sleepwalking through this film, and the whole movie seems to be sleepwalking. So I don't know what it is. I couldn't make friends with this film.
Where in New York makes you most happy?
All right, but you're not gonna like it.
Show me.
James Dean preparing to spark, explode, and then blow out in Anton Corbijn's life. Although, of course, the legend lives on, and in fact, Dean crops up again after a fashion in our very next picture. Although this time, he's looking a little the worse for wear.
I'm 17. When?
Submarine star Craig Roberts writes, directs and acts in Just Jim, the tale of a lovelorn loser in the pebble-dashed limbo of small-town Wales. Jim needs to man up and discover his inner wolf, and Emile Hirsch's swaggering, chain-smoking Dean may just be able to help. Peter, I'll go to you first on this one.
Okay.
Craig Roberts, very young filmmaker, first-time filmmaker. He's
Okay.
wearing his influences rather plainly here, I think.
Yeah, I sort of wish he hadn't done this, really. I was a huge fan of Submarine, and I think he himself was a pretty cool dude, actually. I really liked his style, particularly his style at the award ceremonies he appeared at. I thought he was a very stylish guy.
As he blotted his copybook.
I think it really has. This is quite frankly insufferable. This film. It's an almost toxic mixture of self-indulgence, self-love, and self-pity. Basically, he creates this avatar of himself as the adorable, young, lonely guy in Wales, who of course is a massive cinephile and gets to watch these kind of noir films all alone in a cinema on 35mm. But of course, yeah, right. Incidentally, one of these days we're going to have a film about a young cinephile who gets to watch these films on telly, or on video,
his phone.
the way he actually would have done, and you would have got to see them finally at uni, incidentally. But never mind that. I think he's been given an awful lot of rope in this film, and I think he's sort of come quite close to hanging himself, because it is just madly self-indulgent.
Yeah.
He's a good actor, and he's got a real address to the camera, but he really does not hesitate to award himself close-ups and adoring moments on camera, and the sort of play it again Sam thing that he's got going with Emile Hirsch.
More kind of tweeny Fight Club, isn't it?
Yes,
a bit?
exactly. And I wish somebody could have talked him out of doing this, or could have talked him into doing something which isn't basically another riff on Submarine. I mean, he did it all in Submarine, and he did it all better. And he had Richard Ayoade, who's frankly knows a bit more. It gave me the impression of knowing more what he was doing and how it was going to come over. Whereas Craig Roberts had been massively indulged.
Stop being a little bitch. The key is to be mysterious, but also open. Hey, girls. Oh, what are you doing here this time?
Buying food.
Considering it's all set in his own hometown, every aspect of it rang a bit phony.
Absolutely phony. I didn't believe in it for a second. It was sort of what he knew, but I mean, all kind of autobiographical movies, especially ones with these kind of teen movie slants, they're all massive wish fulfillment and going out and rewriting one's past. Of course, I get that. But this is so phony. I just didn't believe in any of it for a moment. I'd love to see another Craig Roberts movie where he's acting, or maybe doing much less, and it's much less about sort of me.
Well, let's look for
I liked him.
Any positives in this at all. I thought it looked stylish.
It looked
it's
nice.
made for kind of 300 grand. It looks great.
It looks nice.
It's just all the other stuff.
It looks nice. It's not without.
Set my teeth on edge.
Yeah, it's not without confidence, but it runs out of ideas. I'm not even sure that it runs into any ideas, to be quite honest. Any films which have somebody falling into the water and then having a long dreamy sequence underwater where you see a girl underwater, no. I'm not anti him. I think Craig Roberts is a terrifically talented guy, and I still look forward to seeing his next thing, but this is a bit of a pass for me.
Harder.
Craig Roberts in the stylish, irksome Just Jim. Let's now turn our attention to Mia Madre from Italian auteur Nanni Moretti, who won the Cannes Palme d'Or for The Sun's Room way back in 2001. He's older, he's wiser, but he's still got the family and death on his mind.
Ma perché continuo a ripetere le stesse cose da anni? Tutti pensano che io sia capace di capire quello che succede, di interpretare la realtà, ma io non capisco più niente.
Filmmaker Margherita Bai has a hatful of problems. She's broken up from her boyfriend, her latest political drama's in trouble, and her mother is dying and might not last the week. She's a woman in crisis. She's questioning everything. And when the fourth wall breaks down, she'll have nowhere to hide. Peter, Moretti's sort of been in the doldrums for about a decade or so. Is this a comeback?
I think it is. I really think it is. I mean, I love The Sun's Room. It's just one of the best Cannes Palme d'Or winners, in my view.
Yep.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But since then, he's been, I don't know, sketchy. There's always been something sort of semi-improv and sketchy about his filmmaking procedure, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. Here, I think it really came together. There was enormous warmth and likability in this film. I really liked it. It's obviously, I think, a very personal, if not autobiographical film. I mean, he seems to have done a gender swap or sibling swap. I think basically he's had the experience where he is the film director and it's his sister who's had to do the heavy lifting, looking after the mum. But that aside, I mean,
so here he's playing the brother.
Yeah, exactly. He plays Giovanni, the brother, and Giovanni's the one who's had to take time away from work. Margherita's the film director, and there seems to be no question of her taking time away from her work. She's carrying on with shooting her movie. She's making this old-fashioned, kind of socially engaged strike movie, and the fact that when she goes to the hospital to see her mum, I didn't know this happened, but apparently it does. The patients put out strike-style morale banners outside the building, which kind of almost conflate art and life. And she starts having these very vivid hallucinatory dreams about her life. And all that could, in theory, that could be very self-conscious and could be jarring. But miraculously, it just seamlessly comes together in this film. The fantasy scenes and the reality scenes and the jokey scenes, the tonal shifts.
There's a lot of tonal shifts.
Real tonal shifts between some very, very dark stuff, very tragic stuff, and some hilarious stuff with John Turturro, who himself has got his mojo right back. He plays this hilarious, conceited and mercurial movie actor called Barry Huggins, who insists when he's driving, he has a scene when he's driving a car, and they think, well, should we mount it on a truck in the normal way? But no, he insists on really trying to drive with the cameras mounted on the windshield, so he can't see what he's doing. And of course, it's a hilarious metaphor for films and life in general and his attitude. But Turturro,
and he has this romantic association with Rome.
Yes, it does, and you can see that it's all going to go horribly wrong because he's so difficult to employ. And it just, of course, it's a car crash, and he's a car crash. But the farce of this, the absurdity of this, doesn't jar at all with the much more serious and melancholy and downbeat aspects of the rest of the film. At all, it just gels so nicely, and there's such gentleness. And I don't know how to describe it really. It has something of Woody Allen in a way.
Yes.
Because Nanni Moretti is often compared to Woody Allen. And that's a comparison which generally isn't all that useful, but I think is here. I think it reminded me of a sort of mid-period Allen movie with sequences which are kind of the scene where she's going back, walking out of the cinema, showing her movie, and she sees a long line of people right down the street, and she sees her family members, and she waves to them, and it's odd, it's uncanny and strange and weird and funny, and it works in a very relaxed way. It doesn't seem like a dream sequence, and when you cut back into real life, it doesn't seem like you've shunted the points along the rail of the movie in any way. So I think this is a terrific film, and I think it's a real comeback from Moretti.
Goodbye to me. Oh, baby's coming back to me. Yeah, baby's coming back to me. Yeah, baby's coming back.
Noises off and collapsing sets in Nanni Moretti's Mia Madre. And obviously we do like to end these shows on a positive, uplifting note. But too bad, it's not happening. This is 99 Homes.
Oh, that was it! Come
Do better
on,
than that.
Dad!
Director Ramin Barani takes us to the front line of the Florida recession with the urgent 99 Homes, a tale of unfettered capitalism and its human casualties. Michael Shannon is Rick Carver, the court-appointed repo man who takes a cut from the sale of foreclosed houses. And Andrew Garfield is Dennis, his hapless victim turned sidekick, called to escort the residents out onto the street.
You kicked me out yesterday.
I didn't kick you out. The bank did. Did you do construction? I paid $50 cash.
Are you kidding me?
$50 shouldn't be a joke to you, son.
Peter, there's a terrific muscular kind of Steinbeckian quality to this. It's like
just-
a social realist screed, but it
really
plays
is.
like a thriller, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It reminded me in a way of Training Day with
Yeah,
Denzel
but-
Washington and Ethan Hawke as the kind of sour, toxic buddy movie. This was absolutely great. In fact, it came out at its first saw the light of day this time last year, and I don't know why it didn't get more traction than it did. Really, it should be laden with awards, I think, in some ways, because it's terrifically good. Michael Shannon plays this shark-like real estate broker who is basically the court-appointed repo man. His job is to supervise the eviction and to guarantee vacant possession for the banks who have foreclosed on the loan. He takes a juicy cut from the final sale, but which is going to be at a bargain basement rate, but still much less than the original loan sum. So everybody wins. The bank wins, the new buyers win, he wins, everybody wins, apart from the poor people themselves who are booted out onto the streets. And it's a really nasty situation, and the film squeezes every toxic drop out of that situation, particularly at the beginning. You see something horrible has happened with somebody who's been evicted. I won't go into it, but something horrible has happened. It's a really nasty shitstorm, basically, and the Gator-like figure of Rick Carver is swimming through it with his kind of e-cigarette.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And very evocatively set. I mean, he's a gator, but it's very evocatively set in Florida. Which,
Yes, exactly.
Which has that sense anyway of these houses just kind of perched on the swamp that they can all just be swept away.
Yes, exactly. So he's making a fortune out of, as it were, other people's misery. And the whole movie runs on shame, their shame, everybody's real shame at being turfed out in front of all the neighbours. And then what happens is Andrew Garfield plays Dennis, who is a hard-working but naive carpenter who's turfed out in exactly the same way. He has double shame. He's shamed by this, and then he's shamed because he goes to work for Dennis. He goes to work for Carver himself because he's the only one who will do it. And so he kind of crawls his way back. He suppresses, he almost tries to cauterize his own misery and self-hate for having done this,
Which
by
is
actually
very
working for the man himself.
Convincingly done, because even though Carver's obviously a kind of monster, there's a sense that he's just an imp of a wider monstrosity, which is just America as a whole.
Yes.
And he's just doing a job that other people would be stepping in to do were it not for him.
I kept on thinking of Milton Friedman's comment, socialism for the rich and free enterprise for the rest, because the banks, they get bailed out because they can't pay.
You think America gives a flying rat's ass about you or me? America doesn't bail out the losers.
And there's something so horrifying about the sheer middle-class horror, the aspirational horror of being thrown out of your home.
You kicked me and my family out of our home? I don't know you! I know you!
Michael Shannon and Andrew Garfield in the excellent 99 Homes. And with that, we're done. They're about to turn off the power. They're kicking us out. My thanks to Peter, to the crew, and to you for watching. Assuming the lawyers take our calls, we'll try to regain possession of the studio same time next week.